Hi there everyone, it's Jenna from McGuire again, and I appreciate you stopping by. Today I happen to be a guest over on Scrapbook and Cards Today, which I will link to here and in my YouTube description below, and I'm sharing a fun technique that I really think you'll like. Now you could use any kind of stencil for this technique. We're going to do what I call partial stenciling, and this is a great way to get more out of the stencils and inks you may have. And you can use this technique on a card or on a scrapbook page. So let's go ahead and dive in. I have this awesome stencil from Stencil Girl, and I'm going to mask off parts of the area using this tape. This is called a micropore tape. It's like a medical tape, but you could use any kind of tape here, a masking tape or a painter's tape. And I'm just going to mask off a triangle area so I can form a tree. Now this circle stencil is perfect to create these triangle shapes. I'm just kind of following the pattern. But you could use any kind of stencil and simply put 3 pieces of tape into a triangle form and you'll have a tree. So I'm going to place this over a piece of white cardstock and we're going to apply ink over this. Now I will tell you that I find the best ink for doing inking over stencils is Distress ink with an ink blending tool, which you'll see here. You could use any kind of inks for this with any kind of inking tool, but Distress inks are really great for blending, so it makes it super easy and quick to do. Now you'll notice I kind of start on the tape with the inking tool and I pull the ink in towards the center of our open area. I do this so that the areas on the edge are a little bit darker, creating kind of a shadow effect. And I used 2 different colors, peeled paint, and then I went in with a little bit of mowed lawn, which is more of a brighter green, so that we kind of have some variation in the tree. And look how quick and easy that was to create a fun tree. Now I'm going to go ahead and while my tape is still in place, create another tree. You could do a bunch of cards this way or do a background on a scrapbook page. You can easily see through this tape to find out where you want to place it. You could even use Scotch tape that you've kind of touched a bunch so that the stickiness is gone for this process. So again, I'm starting with the peeled paint, working my way from the tape in towards the center of the stenciled area. This is just a great way again for those shadows. After I've applied some ink, I'm going to go ahead and kind of smear on some of the mowed lawn green just for, again, that variation. You could use a single ink if you wanted to. If you have just other dye inks or pigment inks, you can use those with any kind of sponge or maybe even a makeup applicator. But Distress inks really do blend well. Okay, so now you see those little tree trunks on the bottom of our trees. I didn't really have anything that would work for that, so I just created my own little stencil. I cut 2 little slits into a piece of scrap paper and then cut along the bottom, which just formed a tiny little tree trunk. So I'm going to put some tape on the top of that just to hold it in place. And I have some Gathered Twigs brown Distress ink that I'm just going to rub right over that little piece. And I'll pick it up and move it over to the other tree. Sometimes you need just a simple shape like this, and it's easy just to cut it on your own. Or if, say, you wanted to create a star to go on top of the trees, you could just die cut a star from some cardstock and use that as your stencil for a star on top of the tree. However, I decided to go with sequins for the top of the tree for this card. Okay, so I'm just putting some ink there on the rest of the trunk, and there we have 2 quick trunks for our trees. Now right now I have some floating trees kind of just floating out in the middle of my card, so I decided I wanted to create what looks like snowbanks below my trees. Now I did this in the quickest way that I could come up with. I just took some scrap paper, literally just some junk paper here, and I'm just cutting some waves along it with some scissors. There are many dyes out there that you can get that create like the perfect snowbank, but I really don't think you need it for the technique. Now you could always put the mask down, the snowbank mask down on the bottom and have the ink come up above it, but I wanted to have the ink come below it, so there's kind of some color to the snow. So I'm using tumbled glass ink in a very light hand with my ink blending tool because I really don't want the snow to be super blue. I just want it to have a defined edge. So I'm just taking the ink from my mask down onto my paper. So that's a very light amount, and the darkest color is that defined edge along the mask. And there we have a snowbank. Now I've cut another wave on some more scrap paper to create my other snowbank, and I'm just putting the ink around the tree. I could mask the tree off, but it's really not necessary if you're just kind of careful and just make sure the ink goes behind it or around it, not over the tree. Now it's time to add those sequins to the top of the tree. Again, you could have done a kind of a die cut stencil of some stars and inked them up there, but I thought it'd be fun to create some stencil or some sequins. However, the sequins I have were silver and I wanted gold. So we're going to change the color of them. I've put some adhesive onto some scrap paper and I'm going to stick my sequins down onto them. And then I'm going to take Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink, press it right onto those sequins, and then add this gold tinsel embossing powder from Ranger. Now the nice thing is you can change pretty much any embellishment to be a different color by using embossing powders, especially fun embossing powders like this one, like gold or silver powders. I'm just heating up with the heat gun, and there you can see the sequins have been completely changed to a gold tinsel look. You just want it to cool off for a little bit before you grab them or you'll mess up the powder. By the way, these great sequins are from Pretty Pink Posh. I love that they're silver, but on this card I just felt for the holiday card they needed to be gold. So now I'm adding some multi-medium. This is a product from Ranger, and it's the strongest adhesive for sequins, by far the best. I just squirt a little bit down and put the sequin on it. You really don't need much adhesive. I kind of went a little crazy there and put a little too much down, and it kind of squirted out the side. But the nice thing is it's matte, so I can just wipe it away and you'll never see any of it that's kind of came out the sides. And after letting this dry, I decided I wanted to have a finishing touch around the edge of this card because it's pretty simple. I have this die from Mama Elephant, and it cuts a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece with a fun faux stitched edge around it. I actually went ahead and put this onto my paper, ran it through my die cut machine, and added that faux stitched edge. Super easy to do, and I really didn't squish the sequins too much, so it's okay. I probably should have done it beforehand, but I hadn't thought about it. Now I want to stamp a greeting on the bottom with a Hero Art sentiment, so I used my powder tool so there wasn't any static. Now I'm stamping the sentiment with Versamark ink. Again, this is a Hero Art sentiment. And I'm going to add some red embossing powder. This is also from Ranger. It's the red geranium color. It's new from Wendy Vecchi, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous red, perfect for the holidays. So I'm putting that powder on, and then I'm going to zap this with my heat gun. By the way, I rubbed this with the powder tool first. That's an anti-static tool. That's really helpful if you've put any ink on the background and then you want to do some embossing of, say, a sentiment over that. You don't want the powder to stick where you don't want it. So by using that tool first, I can be sure that it only sticks to the Versamark ink that we put on top. Now that I've finished the card front, it's time to stick it to a card. So this is just a top folding card, and I'm putting some Tombow Extreme adhesive all the way around the sides and a little in the center. I'm using a lot of adhesive and a strong adhesive because this card front covers the entire front of the card, and I want to make sure that people don't try to peel it up opening the card. So I just wanted to make sure I had lots of adhesive down right up against the edges. So I'm gluing that right onto the front of the card, and we're good to go. However, it was at this point that I decided we needed some more color on this card, some more red. So I decided to grab some Hero Arts red gemstones and scatter those on the tree. You could also use enamel dots or even drops of stickles if you wanted to. Or you can again add some smaller red sequins. So there you have it, a way you can use part of a stencil for some creating different shapes. You could try circles or squares or trees as I did. As always, I link to the products I use to multiple sources in the YouTube description below, or you can click on over to my blog at Jennifer McGuire Inc., where I'll have much more information. Thanks for spending some time with me, and I'll see you again soon.